Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to my library tour for 2022, where I'm giving myself a visual record of all the books that I currently have, but I'm also digressing occasionally, for a while now, 10 days now, to do books that I don't have anymore, that I either wish I did or that I barely remember, in the Library of the Lost. That's what I'm doing today. I want to wrap the Library of the Lost up today or tomorrow and move back to books on shelves. I just haven't figured out quite how to do that. I have an idea, but the lighting is just horrendous for the idea that I have. So I'll have to figure out how to do that. I know it's a very zillennial concern, but nevertheless, the technical quality on this channel is bad enough as it is without intentionally going down into a well. So we're going to go on with the Library of the Lost. Now, unfortunately, some of these pictures are not just cover scans, unfortunately. So you're going to have to put up with my little hippo. This, for instance, is On Crime Writing by Ross Macdonald. If you can make it out, that's what is the book being crushed there underneath that gigantic paw. And this is the Lou Archer author, the author of the Lou Archer stories, Ross Macdonald. It's a slim book, just his thoughts about writing the craft. I wished that it were 10 times longer. He's actually very good at writing about the craft of writing. I was very happy with the book. I think I gave it away to an aspiring writer and have never seen it again. And I don't know, I'm not sure if it's anthologized anywhere. It's small enough so that it could be anthologized with a bunch of other things. But I don't know that I've ever seen it in any form since the copy that my baby was crushing there. Okay, there she is again. This is a travel writing. This is The Other Nile by Charlie Pye Smith. That's the thing on the other side of that enormous nose, that enormous head. That head weighed as much as my current dog does in her entirety. And this is the author traveling, in Egypt and the Sudan. And it's good. It's the usual. It's very programmatic. There's some flights of fancy that are fairly interesting, some of the language that's fairly interesting. Lots and lots of observations, sort of canned, potted observations about the ordinary people that he sees going about their business and the quirky, eccentric people that he encounters. Nothing really out of the ordinary for travel writing. Certainly travel writing, even on this area, gets a lot better than this. But this was part of the Penguin Travel Library. At once upon a time, I had almost all of that. Okay, this is another this is another baby picture, but this is also another imperfect book. This is Cursed Days by Ivan Bunin, who's a Russian author that I am now much more familiar with than I was before, because he is a starring character. He and his cohorts are starring characters in After the Romanovs, Helen Rappaport's new book. And this is his diary, mishmash, impressionistic jot book about the Russian Revolution. And he doesn't come across as a very likable narrator in here. That's necessary, but he also doesn't come across as a very trustworthy narrator either, which is deadly if you're giving a first-hand diary about an important historical event. I don't know what this paperback is that the baby is behind there. I read it and found it historically interesting, but almost unbearable to read, and got rid of it. I don't think I've seen it since. I don't think I've seen Cursed Days in any other format either than just this. Sometimes I see this paperback at the Prattle and I pass on it, but I don't think I've seen any others. Okay, all right, another Lucy picture, I'm afraid. This is Jakob Burckhardt. This is The Civilization of the Renaissance in Italy. This is a big, oversized hardcover that was full of illustrations. Black and white, but really nice illustrations of the buildings, the statues of the people, some of the artwork. Just delightful. The edition of, the translation, Burckhardt isn't all that hard to translate. He's had quite a few translators. This translation was just fine, but this is the edition to have. I don't have it anymore. When I saw this picture, I immediately went looking for it. I don't have this edition anymore. I must have got rid of it to somebody. I would never have just, sold it or donated it or anything. I'd had to have gone to somebody who wanted it. Somebody maybe did. Maybe somebody was over here for wine and calzones, and the evening went on. I like to think that in personal contact, I am pretty generous anyway to start with. I put a great value on generosity. I'm happy to give things to people. Obviously, if you follow this channel, you probably know that. You might have been a recipient of one of those things. But when the wine has been flowing, not only am I chattier and more prone to laughter, but I get more generous. Even the small reservations that I might have about some things go away. I can easily picture that being the reason why I don't have this volume anymore. I just keep waiting. I'm sure that in the back of my mind when I did it, I'm sure the idea was The Brattle will provide. If I want that edition, I will see it again, and I just haven't, but I will. Then we have Robert Gutman. This is, you can't make it out from this picture, but this is a huge biography of Mozart that he did, a cultural biography. That, as you can tell from that description, the cultural biography, this has a lot of stuff in it. This is not just the life of Mozart. This is his life and times. If you like that sort of thing, the sort of thing where everything gets its own digression, Gutman is a very, very good writer, so you don't mind. He's certainly not boring. But I know some people, whether the author is boring or not, they don't want that. They want a biography of the person, not a biography of everything the person's ever touched. You won't get that in this book. This is everything in the kitchen sink biography. I have a sweet spot for that kind of biography. And I actually loved the Mozart who comes out of this book. The man who comes out of this book, I liked him a lot. I don't see that man in his correspondence, and I don't see that man in his music either. Oddly enough, there's a conversation for late night over wine and calzones. But I did see him in this book, and it was a charming portrait. This is the Mozart biography to have. I think it's even better than Maynard Solomon's book. I wish that I still had it. I'm sure that when I got rid of it, I thought, maybe it was a young music student. I'm sure I thought the Brattle will turn up another copy of this. They certainly will. Probably I've seen one, but I don't want the trade paperback. I want this hardcover. So I'll just wait. That's all. Oh my God. All right. There's a lot of Lucy pictures here. Sorry about that. This is James Mann's famous book, The Rise of the Vulcans. All about, you can't make it out because the baby's gigantic spatulate paw is covering most of the cover. But this is about George W. Bush's war cabinet, that they informally called themselves the Vulcans, of Paul Wolfowitz and Dick Cheney and Condoleezza Rice and their ilk, not only on the upper rungs, but all the lower rungs as well. And their decisions, the way they shaped their decisions to start 2 wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, and the way they chose to justify those things, the way they shaped intelligence, not only what agencies saw, but what the president saw. And it's a gripping reading experience. It'll make your blood boil if you live through these events, but it's a gripping reading experience. I loved it. As a book, I loved it. And it did make my blood boil, although it's not exactly a partisan thing. Okay, this next one is from Europa Editions, I believe. This is a lovely trade paperback. This is Strange Loyalties, a Ladalaw investigation. There's the baby pronouncing judgment on the back. Behind it there, with all of her folds of flab everywhere. There was a long period where she was just sitting there looking at me like a moo cow in the field, so I took pictures of everything with her in the picture. It won't last forever. Even in the Library of the Lost, it won't last forever. But I remember the sort of the gimmick of this book is that there's a hard-bitten detective who's even more embittered than usual because his brother died in a car crash, in a maddeningly random car accident. And as the book goes on, the investigator starts to wonder if the accident was actually random. He begins to look more closely at his brother's death. And for a long time, the author here sustains in the reader it could go either way suspicion that maybe it's just grief and orneriness, and that there isn't actually anything to this. That maybe in the course of this book, what we're looking at is an investigator going rogue and tearing at something that doesn't have any deeper dimensions. People do die randomly in car accidents. Of course, it being a noir novel, there are no accidental deaths anywhere in murder mystery fiction, so of course you know what's coming. But I liked that. I liked a lot about this. What did we get? Okay, Lucy does not make an appearance in this next book. This is by Kathy Johnson, and this is Nature Walks, which is not only a collection of her sketches and observations about going out in nature. It's a very good book along those lines. But also, like a couple of other books that we've seen recently, this is an urge for you to do the same thing. Keep a nature journal. Go out into nature with a notebook. Sit down and start to capture in words what is around you. She makes a point over and over again in this book that the more you do that, the more you will notice. It will actually improve the time you spend out walking in nature, even when you don't have a notebook with you. She also, offhandedly suggests try sketching what you're looking at. What's the harm? Try it. Try sketching what you're looking at. But mainly, use that. Pay attention to your observations. to see where they lead you, to see if you can improve them, to improve your nature walking. I liked this book a lot. I strongly urge the rest of you, definitely walk out in nature at least once a day if you can. If you can, do it. Okay, then we'll finish up with a romance novel. This is an anthology called Naughty Naughty about bad boys. The authors are Susan Johnson, Adrienne Lee, Leandra Logan, and Anne-Marie Winston. And I think, if I remember correctly, Susan Johnson is the only person in this anthology who turns in a historical romance. All the rest of them, I think, are contemporary. I remember not being satisfied with this. Not to use loaded language. I remember not being satisfied with it for a reason that I've heard from a lot of romance readers, which is that the short story format just doesn't work for this genre. It just isn't satisfying for them. I don't know if that's true, but it certainly seems it. It certainly seems it. Every time I've read a romance short story, I have plenty of romance anthologies right here at Hyde Cottage, and the short stories usually don't please me as much as novels do. The Susan Johnson story in this collection, if I remember correctly, signally disappointed me. This is an author who usually doesn't. I wonder if that's true for the rest of you, for you romance readers out there. Do you prefer novels to short stories? You must. I wonder about that. See, I'm all over the map with that. I prefer science fiction short stories to novels, usually. And I wonder where the wheel stops when it comes to your own favorite genre. But for romance, it's an evocative cover. But I wouldn't recommend the book. So we're going to end on a little bit of a subdued note there, because that's the last of the books for today. But we'll be back. I don't know if I'll do a library tour tomorrow. Every day that I make videos is a day that I am not concentrating that time on the deadlines that are in front of me. Usually I do this, and when I do, it comes to a crunch, and I have to short the videos for a while. And I console myself when I have to do that by saying, okay, there might be a day or two where I have to do that, but I'm on Voxer. You can Voxer me anytime you want, and you have my email. You can email me anytime you want as well. So it's not like I'm cutting off contact in this strangest parasocial relationship anywhere on YouTube. But it might. I'm gonna skip the library tour for tomorrow anyway. But it might be a lot of videos that get skipped until this deadline feels a little bit more terminal. But anyway, I'm gonna wrap this up for now. But I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.